Welcome to another edition of the Backyard Professor videos. I'm Kerry Schertz, the Backyard Professor. The argument that I've been discussing, that the Book of Mormon has no archaeological proof, no historical proof, no linguistic proof, I think that argument's false. And to present yet another piece of evidence that I've been doing in these videos, this is by the scholar John A. Twetness, The Most Correct Book. He published this in 1999. Chapter 3 on his Reformed Egyptian ideas. Now he notes through history how the Egyptian hieroglyphics have changed. First it was in the hieroglyphs themselves, which were meant to be carved in stone, and these depicted real-life events, people, places, things, geographical units. He said they had more than 700 characters to scratch and scribe in the stone, and it was a very tedious process. And then several centuries later, the Egyptians changed this into a more of a script form of the hieroglyphs that we call demotic, which is the Greek word for popular. And he says, or hieratic, hieratic came first, and then later on it was changed again into demotic. And this is the Greek word for popular. He said the Egyptians have already reformed their own writing system before the Nephites ever got a hold of it. And so historically, the interesting thing is historically, the Book of Mormon, according to Moroni, Twetness notes, was written using reformed Egyptian characters through the Nephites, and they also knew Hebrew, according to Mormon 9:32 through 34. Another of its writers, Nephi, said right at the beginning of the record, he said he employed the language of the Egyptians to make his record. That's 1 Nephi chapter 1 verse 2. So this idea that ancient Israelites wrote the Book of Mormon using an Egyptian writing system, this is interesting, but there are precedents for this practice. And we now know that several writing systems of the ancient Near East were borrowed from the Egyptians. So the Book of Mormon opens out on a correct theme. This is on page 22, 23, and 24 of Twetness's work. When Moroni noted that he was writing his record in Reformed Egyptian, he also indicated that his people still used the Hebrew language, Mormon 9:32 through 34. Similarly, his ancestor Nephi had made a record in the language of my father, which consists of the learning of the Jews and the language of the Egyptians. This suggests that the Book of Mormon may have been written in Hebrew, but they were using Egyptian script. Evidence for this kind of writing has been discovered in recent years. Archaeologically discovered information shows us that a number of Northwest Semitic texts that are related to Hebrew, including 3 Egyptian magical papyri from the 14th and 13th centuries BC, the London Magical Papyrus, the Harris Magical Papyrus, and the Papyrus Anastasi I. There are other Egyptian documents, Ostracon 25759 from the early 11th century BC. This also has a Semitic text that reads like Hebrew, but it's written in Egyptian characters. Papyrus Amherst 63. This is a document written in Egyptian Demotic. It dates to the 2nd century BC, and it was found in an earthen jar at Thebes in Egypt during the second half of the 19th century. I'm on page 24 now. Though the script is Egyptian, the underlying language is Aramaic, which is closely related to Hebrew. Among the writings included in the religious text is a paganized version of Psalm 20, verses 2 through 6. Here then we have a biblical passage in its Aramaic translation written in late Egyptian characters. In 1967, Israeli archaeologists discovered at the ancient site of Arad an ostracon, that is, it's a pottery fragment. The archaeologists call them ostracons. They discovered this pottery fragment from shortly before 600 BC. Now this is Lehi's day. This is Lehi's time, according to the Book of Mormon, 600 BC. The text on the ostracon is written in a combination of Egyptian hieratic and Hebrew characters, but can be read entirely as Egyptian. Of the 17 words in the text, 10 words are written in hieratic, and 7 of the words are written in the Hebrew. This discovery suggests that when Lehi's son Nephi spoke of writing in a language consisting of the learning of the Jews and the language of the Egyptians, he may have been using a combination script. This is very remarkably discovered archaeologically and historically and linguistically and culturally. Very, very powerful. Though ridiculed for claims of the nature of the original record from which he translated the Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith's story has found support during the last half of the 20th century. Ancient records were sometimes written on metallic plates, and some of the Hebrew and other Semitic texts were written using Egyptian characters, just exactly like the Book of Mormon. That's yet again another evidence that I believe shows that the argument that the archaeology of the Book of Mormon has nothing, that the Book of Mormon has no proof historically, linguistically, or culturally, I believe that argument is patently false.